Hello, and welcome back to the Next Frontiers of AI podcast, where we explore the innovations, strategies, and real-world stories shaping the future of enterprise AI. I'm your host, Scott Hebner, Principal Analyst at theCUBE Research, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Today, we're going to tackle a challenge that keeps many leaders up at night, especially in the financial services industry. Why does roughly 2/3 of AI projects stall before making it into production? And for those that do make it into production, why do they often fail to scale in line with the needs of the business? This is a problem that's become even more urgent with the advent of agentic AI, where higher stakes use cases demand even greater trust in governance and execution discipline. The reality is that most proof of concepts, or POCs, never make it into production. And with agentic AI's complexity, with persistent memory and reasoning and autonomous action, the barriers to success, the deployments that make it successful are becoming even higher. In this episode, we're going to explore what really happens behind this POC to production gap, and more importantly, how to overcome it. We'll also deep dive into how to create an agentic AI architecture that is designed to meet these challenges. Joining me to unpack all this is Peyman Parsi, a senior principal for financial services at MongoDB. Peyman has been working closely with some of the world's largest banks and financial institutions to not only experiment with AI, but to build solutions that make it into production, deliver ROI, and scale with the needs of the business. Peyman, let me bring you up here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Great to be here, Scott.
And it's been a while. I think we first got a chance to talk at the AWS Financial Services Symposium in New York City. I think that was back in late May or something like that?
Yeah, that was a great event. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And our conversation was really great.
Absolutely.
So before we jump into the technical and operational challenges, maybe you can give our listeners a quick sense of your role at MongoDB and your perspective on how AI is unfolding in the financial services industry, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm responsible for financial services industry solution in North America. So I work with a variety of FSI companies, from fintech to top to the U.S. banks and Canadian banks across the board, a very large, transformation program around data. And I partner with them primarily with the technology leaders to make sure they have the right data solution, bridging the gap between financial services domain expertise and also technology expertise. But these days, data play a key role in all the transformation, and where we play to make sure we enable and accelerate those transformation for our client, making sure they have the right solution at the enterprise scale. So a lot of the customers that we are dealing with, they are large in size, and they have different type of challenges compared to smaller companies, and it's very diverse. So these days, most of the discussion focus on AI because the AI is top strategy everywhere and pretty much across FSI. And implementation of that is a different story, but everybody has strategy around AI and trying to do something about it.
Yeah, my experience over my career has been some of the most difficult challenges are in financial services when it comes to deploying new technologies. And, if it can be solved in financial services, it provides lessons for all the other industries. So I think you're in the middle of the hot spot here, where some of these, challenges surface first, and it's in a high stakes environment, obviously dealing with people's money.
Yeah, for sure. Financial services typically has the investment and backing from financial perspective to make things happen, but environment is highly regulated as well at the same time. If it passes those gates, the industry will follow for sure.
Well, let's start with a headline statistic, and I sort of reference this a little bit in the intro. But that a majority of these projects in financial services simply don't make it into production. And for those that do, they often face an uphill battle to scale. So in your experience, what is happening behind the scenes here? Why is there such a high failure rate? As you can see here on the graphic, 56% is darn high. And in this survey from S&P Global, it actually doubled the rate that have, basically been abandoned, doubled over the last year. So that's a pretty daunting challenge for any industry, but particularly in financial services.
Yeah, absolutely. And these kind of numbers and stats kind of align to what I see across the industry. Sometimes even is higher in certain, segments of financial services. I think when you look at what's happening at the board of directors and senior management, they all ask about AI, and AI strategy is a core part of future, innovation for large financial organizations. And when it comes to CIO and CTO to respond to that, when you look at their landscape, there's still 80% legacy, and the digital transformation that has started years ago is still going, and it's not delivered yet. So in that environment, there's a lot of complexity, a lot of technical debt, and the data infrastructure also not ready for the type of AI application to be built on top. So when you look at the fragmented data across multiple different departments, multiple different areas, there's data silos. There's no single source of truth from data perspective. That's where we exactly help our customers to try to find what is the right data infrastructure before they think about bringing different type of technology and making sure the foundation is correct for them. So what's happening in the industry, majority of these use cases is easy to experiment, but before going to production, there's a lot of gates in financial services, both financially, from regulation perspective, and also quality and trust. So and the industry is struggling with all this, and so part of that is, it's very hard to build a foundation that is adaptable and agile and flexible, and that's where we play on MongoDB side, try to bring that flexibility to the industry. What's in reality happens, a lot of these use cases getting implemented as a patchwork on top of what they have in terms of legacy, and also in terms of existing challenges. You're not trying to solve the problem, you're just tactically responding to an event. And this is something that fundamentally companies, and especially banks and large financial organizations, need to resolve.
Yeah, I think the message there is it's not just a technical problem. It's organizational inertia. It's the trust issue, which I think I hear everywhere I go. With governance gaps, you got compliance, you got how much clarity is there on the ROI, and
so there's cultural problem as well, and also skill set. It's a big gap in the industry as well, because the AI is moving so fast, and everybody needs to keep up. It's no longer optional.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and with everything moving at warp speed, it's increasingly hard to keep up with everything. I mean, we've been through technology transformations before, and it seems like going all the way back to mainframe to client server, they unfold faster and faster, and we're living in warp speed now with all this AI stuff.
Yeah, our focus on the data side, what we see, so AI require real-time data, but there's also a lot of more than 85% of the data used by AI is unstructured data. And these organizations are not properly structured around handling real-time unstructured data or hybrid data or semi-structured data. And also data ingestion is one part of it, but also get the context out of that data in a form that is understandable and create value for your business is also another challenge, where capabilities like vector search and embedding comes to the play. And these are all new technologies for a lot of FSI companies.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us to, so as our industry is increasingly shifting to building on generative AI and LLMs to build AI agents and agentic workflows, how do you see this changing things, right? I mean, after all, the main difference here is their autonomy, decision-making abilities, the purpose of becoming, essentially collaborative digital workers in the workforce. And you actually have a great chart on this that I'm going to bring up here. And maybe you can just talk a little bit about how you see this evolution occurring in financial services, and how the challenges that you just talked about, kind of shift a little bit as time goes by here.
Yeah, so this is an interesting chart. When you look at stage one, where a couple of years ago, LLM were introduced, and pretty much all the companies trying to figure out what are the use cases that this technology can be applied to, what business problem they can resolve. And majority was, content generation, marketing, and I would say low risk use cases, but high value. And then when you look at stage two, which were majority of the large financial organization are stage between stage one and two, is implementation of rack solution, where you try to get more relevant and more accurate response from AI, and being able to implement something that is production ready, and even simple use cases could be implemented in production with some level of accuracy and some level of trust. So, but majority of large banks and large financial organizations are at stage one and two, focusing on horizontal more use cases in AI around corporate GPTs, knowledge base, things like that. While the industry is moving to stage 3 and 4, when you look at the fintechs and larger fintech companies, so they're all moving toward more advanced agentic, bringing these AI agent and multi-agents, and trying to solve the business problem and create values for their businesses around multi-agent landscape. So the delta between stage 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are getting wider and wider, and this is concerning in the industry because some of the companies that get stuck stage 1 and 2, it's very hard for them to keep up.
Right. Yeah, if you fall behind in today's, as I was saying before, the warp speed of everything shifting and the innovation is, you may never catch up, right? So it's critical here to kind of try to get ahead of these challenges, right?
And agentic AI has a lot of powers in terms of when you look at combining that with human brain and also decision making. Not everything has to be fully autonomous, so it could be human in the loop use cases, especially in financial services. If you're dealing with the high risk use cases, makes sense to go with that type of solution. And when you want to scale, having this multi-agent orchestration, that in a way that this agent can collaborate and run multiple workflows in parallel, it would be a game changer. But we're not there from the industry perspective yet.
Yeah, let's shift there. You've been talking quite a bit about the technology foundation, right? Agentic AI and its need for persistent memory. You have vector search, you have the interaction around history that has occurred, the context window, all that. To even a greater extent, you got seamless integration. It just puts a lot of pressure on the underlying data architecture. So in your view, in your experience in financial services, what does AI ready look like in terms of an architectural point of view? And how should companies in that industry go about de-risking these deployments? And
so there are a few characteristics for a data solution to be ready for AI. So definitely being able to handle data in real time is one of those key capabilities. So these AI systems today, they need immediate response. If you are doing fraud detection, for example, in financial services, or you're doing a loan approval, time is an essence, and it cannot be done by the batch. So it's primarily a real-time capability. And also, when you look at this screen here, so in the agentic landscape, MongoDB becomes a persistent layer of these agents by saving all the historical interaction. These agents are stateful. So our solution become more like a memory for short-term and long-term data store. But in addition to that, once you store the data, so most of this data are in the form of unstructured data. The database need to be able to handle unstructured data in AI landscape, but also be able to retrieve that data in a form of vector search and contextual search to be able to do reasoning and action that are driving decisions. Otherwise, it's going to be just a basic query. And it can be enhanced by domain-specific embedding and also re-ranking. So these are all within the scope of increasing accuracy of the response from AI. But also industry is moving fast by creating some standards. We support MCP servers as well. So we're in the process of launching that. We had a private preview. So these MCP servers are a game changer because it will enable the data store for agents to interact with. And I think combination of all that, it makes I would say the good foundation. MongoDB has a good foundation for being the backbone of AI-powered banking. We also support horizontal scalability seamlessly, which is required by AI. So amount of data that the AI need to handle, and it's just going to exponentially grow. So this is part of what we offer as well.
Yeah, we had a big conversation around that. I remember at the AWS Financial Services Symposium. And so this basically represents the stack, if you will, that MongoDB is building out. And then what you're doing, as I understand it, is taking it and now you're applying it to different use cases, different domains. And your role is to help apply it all in the financial services context, right?
Yeah, this one is in particular for AI agent and agentic. So we have different, capabilities in MongoDB that is not on that slide. So it's basically a data platform for developers to use certain capabilities, not only for AI, but also in data flexibility, schema flexibility, asset transaction, aggregation, ETL, number of different capabilities as well. So, but one thing in that diagram was very important, also seamless integration with AI tools and models. So we have that because everything that we implement is API based and is built for modern type of application. That seamless integration is very easy.
Yeah, so let's one of the things I love that you were doing and what we talked about a little bit about offline and when we were together in New York was helping your customers with POCs, right? Yeah. And you have created a wealth management POC that I think is really impressive, and I think is a great example that kind of illustrates the power of what you can do with agentic AI. And in this particular case, it's for wealth management. Let me just bring up the summary that you have on what this does. Maybe you describe it a little bit, and then we'll take a quick look at a demo of it.
Yeah, for sure. So across our industry solution, offering, we build number of different demos to showcase how easy it is to implement different type of solutions with MongoDB. This one is particularly for wealth management, agentic AI, where, in today's markets, there's large amount of unstructured data. If you look at what happened in stock market in the past few months, so majority of those changes in direction of the market triggered by tweet messages or social media messages or news messages, none of that is typically part of the structured data that is available in capital market across larger companies. And so what we are trying to showcase here is a easy ingestion of that data, unstructured data, and also run AI agents on top to analyze that data and create actionable insight for portfolio managers, and in a way that is not fully autonomous. It's human in the loop use case. And we think because in this wealth management demo, we are showcasing that we're dealing with financial assets reallocation, that this is very sensitive, and if AI agent make a mistake, the impact is going to be very severe. So we wanted to showcase also human in the loop. At the end of the day, portfolio manager make final decision, but we provide this agent will create all sorts of actionable insights for the portfolio manager to be able to make those decisions. And the amount of data today in the market with unstructured data is not something that human can comprehend. So, and as I mentioned earlier, this data needs to be real time, needs to be contextual. So portfolio managers need, summary of this data, need explanation of the data, not just pure data ingestion. That's where these agents will shine.
Yeah, and what's interesting, so each one of these agents have an LLM and a graph.
Yeah.
Right. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so they run, there are two agents that are responsible for market analysis and news analysis, because those are constant data. So they run constantly and they analyze that data and create reports for portfolio manager that every morning this portfolio manager can review and look at those analysis and get, full insight of what's happening in the market. But there is a third agent on the right side of that diagram that is more prompt agent, is React agent, where there is shift in the market middle of the day, and portfolio manager need to ask question what to do at this point, or some question coming up at the portfolio level that is not answered by the other two agents. This is very flexible. It's a prompt based, more like an assistant, more like a co-worker of portfolio manager. And portfolio manager can ask question about reallocation, about the stocks, about everything that's happening in the market. And that agent is fully autonomous, has ability to select the right tool to answer the questions. And it's very handy because it's not predefined, so you can ask any type of questions. And it also has web searching capability behind the scene through a tool called Tavily tool. And it cannot find the answers, can go and also search the web for you and bring that information in. Very interesting.
So each one of these have a knowledge graph, and
That's
then
right.
through the MCP protocols, that's how they share context and information. Is that how I should
The
look at
MCP protocol, we are implementing that in phase 2. It's going to be launched next week, actually. But right now, the way they interact with MongoDB directly through query language.
Yeah, and then moving to knowledge graphs over time.
And we have, absolutely. And also the vector search capability is critical part of it. We also use domain-specific models. So Voyage AI is a company that MongoDB acquired a few months ago, and we implemented the finance domain-specific models to get higher quality response from these agents. So that's integrated as part of our solution. And this solution is publicly available. You can go, we have the links, you can publish that as well. Scott, if somebody want to go and download the GitHub repository, it's a container based, you can run it yourself and see in action.
Well, let's take a look at it, and maybe you can just talk us through the quick demo here.
Yeah, this is the main screen. On the in the middle of the page, you can see the portfolio with different stocks and different colorful indicators like WIX, GDP, interest rate, unemployment rate, and sentiment score. This is where the AI provide the explanation to portfolio manager with different indicators and different explanation of those predefined reports that the other two agents that I mentioned. So there are some charting capability. MongoDB support Atlas charts, which if you have the data in MongoDB, you can create easily different charts. So this section is showing news sentiment and the way that news is extracted. And we run an algorithm, vector search, as well to drive the news. And also this is the document model projection and enhancement throughout the workflow of the agents. And we showcase that. This particular one is the React agent, which is prompt based, and you can ask question. Some of these questions predefined, but there's a free text form about allocation of portfolio, and this particular question is about what to do in this current market condition, and agent is responding. And there is a tool that is selected that shows here on the screen that the agent selected that tool. When you run a different question around, for example, this one is about equity and gold, and so you can see different tools is triggered here, and AI agent will try to figure out what is the best answer. At the end of the day, also, as I mentioned, is human in the loop in financial high risk use cases. Still, that's going to be the case for a while until these agents trust and quality increases.
Yeah, then over time, this becomes more and more of a coworker, right? Where they partner up with people, and that this is how they get work done.
Yeah, absolutely. So we intentionally changed the name of chatbots to assistant. Is really an assistant to the portfolio manager and coworker.
Yeah, and then an agent, which I think we'll get into a little bit more in terms of, the sophistication of them as they grow over time. Become even more than just an assistant; they actually become a collaborator, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're heading in an interesting way, which kind of brings me to just to get your perspectives on this whole notion of trust. Everywhere I go, trust is the overriding concern that people have, right? Not just trust in from a technology perspective in terms of security and compliance, but users are only going to actually use the stuff and get value out of it if they trust the answers and the explanations.
Yeah.
So when you are working with these much higher risk use cases, whether it be fraud protection or the wealth management that we just saw, or any kind of operational decision making, how do you balance all the automation with the human in the loop controls, along with the transparency that's needed and the governance and the compliance and all that?
Yeah, I think what I see in the industry, the trend is for larger organization that they can bring in and host the model. Some of them, they bring it in terms of privacy and making sure, the governance is satisfied. But going back to the trust, the models are improving. And there's a lot of R&D in the industries across improving the trust factor for this and quality of the responses. But there are a couple of other techniques that frequently used today. Different type of rack solution. It seems to be one of the most practical option that is cost effective and also increase the quality significantly. So agentic RAG or basic RAG or graph RAG, combination of retrieval augmented retrieval. So it's kind of providing the enough context to the LLM models to be more accurate. Retrieval augmented generation, but there is also another layer that quite a bit being discussed and implemented is around domain-specific models that I mentioned earlier. So if you are in certain industry and you want these models to be, tailored toward what you are doing, there are models, embedding models, especially available like that, like Voyage AI that I mentioned, that what we are trying to integrate as part of Mongo. There's also re-ranking capability in that, because when you receive the answer or retrieve the answer, the ranking also plays a big role in quality of what you want to provide, and the ranking is also part of that kind of combination of domain-specific retrieval, but also proper ranking of the results. There are other advancement in the industry to reduce the hallucination. Like there's a lot of discussion about causal AI and other techniques, but it's really looking forward to those capabilities to come in to increase the trust. So there's a lot of activities going on, but I think that the trust question is a very valid question, and we are watching that very closely as well.
Yeah, if going back to where I think this is all heading, and the next frontier I think we're going to be entering into is really around decision intelligence. And LLMs are really not designed to be decision-making entities, because they're based on correlation and pattern recognition. And I know there's a lot of things that can help provide the information to make decisions, but they're not good at helping to rationalize choices, perform what-if analysis. They don't handle changing environments very well in terms of, like, if you were to do counterfactual reasoning with it. Bottom line is, you brought up causal AI. LLMs alone, have a tendency to confuse correlation with causation, or they don't recognize hidden factors that might be, influencing a outcome. And it certainly can't, if there's 100 parameters that are influencing an outcome, it can't rank them, because you might find out there's only 4 of the 100 that actually really matter, and you don't need all that data, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
what's your view of where this is all heading in terms of, not necessarily, from a MongoDB perspective, but just, overall, if you were to look out, the years ahead, let's just say, right?
Yeah.
Do you think this notion of decision intelligence, causality, causal knowledge graphs, you think that's going to come on the scene?
So I think so. I think this is one of the trends that we are watching very closely, although it's more experimental. But I think what's happened in reality is usually combination of different technologies that make the final answer, or create that quality in terms of trust. I'll give you an example in fraud detection in financial services. So there are solutions around generative AI and RAG, and using vector search and AI, LLM oriented fraud detection. But it doesn't mean that it's going to replace the machine learning or rule-based fraud detection that's already in place. It just enhances the quality of them by reducing false positive and create another layer on top that we get better service and better root cause analysis and better explanation of those fraud transactions. But also at the same time, if there are pattern or similarity that you can determine with different techniques, this will be added value. So with causal AI, I think it's going to be very similar the way I see that. So the current advancements are going to be in place, and that's going to enhance it even yet to the next level.
Yeah, we here at the Cube Research, we actually just fielded some primary research, right? So surveys, a large number of respondents in our space. And one of the things that it's going to explore is decision intelligence, where that's all heading, what the state of it is, what people find to be important. And as part of that, you get into knowledge graphs, and you get into RAG, and you get into chain of thought, and certainly you get into causal AI.
Yeah.
And since we brought this up, let me just I went and got a in the background here just a chart just on causal AI, just a little bit of background on it for our audience since we're getting into this. There's a lot of potential benefits to this, and there are implementations of it. Like, for example, Uber uses it, Netflix uses it, Georgia Pacific uses it. A lot of manufacturing type environments use this because they need to understand root cause, right? And they need to understand, think about a knowledge graph. It represents relationships between entities, context mapping between entities, the meaning, right? It's semantic knowledge. But while it can represent relationships, it can't tell you the cause and effect nature of those relationships. So I have, inflation rate in Switzerland, and I have a decrease in the value of the dollar in the UK. There might be a relationship, but you don't have an understanding of the causality of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting what's happening in the agentic landscape with React agent, because those React agent are reasoning and action as well. So it's kind of overlapping a little bit, although not exactly the same. But I think it would be also interesting to see these kind of technologies emerges together and create even higher value.
Yeah, I think of it as a whole bunch of ingredients. So causal AI, just like knowledge graphs, and just like cause and effect, and just like graph RAG, and we just keep adding more and more ingredients to what we can cook up. And I think with causal knowledge graphs, which is basically a more sophisticated knowledge graph, you get a lot of these benefits, right? What if this, and it can help you do counterfactual analysis here. It can start to understand know-how. I like that the causal AI graphs can actually explain the precise chain of events that lead to an outcome, so they're highly explainable. The bottom line here, I think, is the LLMs are kind of telling you what to do, but they're not necessarily telling you how to do it or why that is the right thing to do among multiple, alternate things you can potentially pursue, right? And so I think as time goes by here, I'm, for one, convinced that it will become more and more of the repertoire of what people have to work with, just to make these agents better at helping humans actually make decisions rather than just giving them information.
Yeah. Causal AI also have a lot of promises around hallucination reduction significantly. So it's all going to help. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, before we wrap up here, let's talk a little bit about what you see is coming next. I know we kind of just touched on the causal elements of things and just decision intelligence. But if we, again, look out longer term, 3 to 5 years, what does a mature AI-powered financial services organization look like? And what are you recommending to your clients in terms of how they prepare themselves for that? And as you answer that question, I'm going to bring up a chart here that I love that you created that kind of talks about how MongoDB, has been rapidly evolving with the needs of their clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's hard to say 3 to 5 years because things are changing by month or by week these days.
Yeah.
It's hard to predict that. But if you look at our journey on MongoDB, so built for change from the get-go, from the beginning, We introduced flexible document model back in 2007, and then followed by Atlas, our cloud offering, ability to run MongoDB everywhere, basically on-prem, in your laptop, or on the cloud. And then significant improvement over time. In 2023, we introduced AI-ready architecture by introducing vector search capability. We knew that AI is going to be a game changer technology, and we prepare ourselves to be ultimate, database for AI workload. And since then, we try to listen to our customers and also follow the industry to bring AI-related capability like stream processing. Majority of the data that comes for AI and needs to be stored and needs to be retrieved is in the form of, streaming. We developed those kind of capabilities and brought into the database level. Also with embedding and re-ranking. So with the recent acquisition of Voyage AI, we're bringing that to the database level. And this is all built based on robust security and also seamless scalability. So the AI workload requires that real-time interaction, but also scalability horizontally, because the amount of data is unpredictable and you need to be ready for that. At the end of the day, we are building an infrastructure and foundation for AI workload that is flexible, agile, and adaptable for future. And I'm pretty sure AI would not be the last innovation. So whatever you build, think about long-term and build the right infrastructure for it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been touching on throughout this conversation today, and again, when we talked in New York about domain-specific use cases.
Yeah.
And
so those ones are in financial industry is very applicable, and with the quality that you need. So definitely a must. So this is just an example of some of the use cases we work with our customers, and the possibilities are endless. So here there are some examples around portfolio management, loan credit scoring, customer personalization, AI assistant for customer service, market research, document management, summarization. It really, when you have unstructured data and you combine it with your existing structured data and run contextual search on top of that to understand the meaning of that data and then drive efficiencies and decision making. So the possibilities are endless for these use cases.
Yeah, it's great to see. I think that's the future too, is domain-specific models, right? Agents that understand specific domains, like the wealth management part of financial services. And the more vertical they become and the more nuanced around the actual workers that perform those tasks, the more likely they are to become collaborators and not just assistants, right? In helping people get work done. And without those kind of, a mindset around use cases, which I love what MongoDB is doing here. I mean, clearly you have the use cases thought out and being implemented along with just the technology, right?
Yeah, and as the agent and AI learn from that experience, the trust factor is going to go up at the same time for those particular use cases. Yeah,
exactly. All right, Peyman, this has been awesome, but it's time for us to wrap up. Very insightful conversation, very illustrative, and like I've always said, keeping track of what happens in financial services, what happens there is going to happen elsewhere across other industries, particularly given the unique characteristics of it in terms of regulated, regulations and decision making and things of that nature. So, thanks much for taking the time to be here and sharing all your perspectives. For our listeners, the takeaway is quite clear here. In a high risk, high reward domain like finance in particular, success with AI isn't just about building something that's impressive in the lab and makes a good demo. It's about creating the right architecture, having the right governance, having the operational readiness to deliver real world impact based on trust. It has to work in production and needs to be trusted by the users that are going to use it. Because after all, trust is becoming the currency of innovation. If there's no trust, there's no ROI. For everyone tuning in, be sure to subscribe to the Next Frontiers of AI podcast. Go out to mongodb.com to check out what they're doing in this space. And don't miss future episodes of the Next Frontier of AI. Until next time, I'm Scott Hebner. Thanks for listening. We'll definitely see you on the next round. We are the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis. and tech interviews. Bye for now. See everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
You bet.